The talk today is Spiritual Chat on Soul Contracts, and the date is Wednesday, September 21st, 2022. I feel this is a really important topic as our lives are literally set up down to the smallest detail by soul contracts that we have in place before we were born. I believe that before we come into this life, we make soul contracts with all whom we will come in contact with in this lifetime and determine beforehand what we want to achieve through that contact. I believe that God, or whomever you call the creator, really created this thing called life with perfection and great attention to detail. So nothing can happen to us without us either having requested it for our own experience or having agreed to it for someone else's experience or for our mutual experience. Michael Murdad says we need to think of ourselves as a military base, that no one can enter the base without the proper papers of authority. So we are basically a no-fly zone for anyone who doesn't have a soul contract with us. I love the way he says, when somebody comes and they say, sorry, you're not allowed through unless you got the papers, and then they show the soul contract that they have, and he says, oh my, okay, you can enter. Good luck with that one. as if the soul contract is one that's really hectic. So I love the way he puts it in that way, because soul contracts are actually a pretty serious thing. So just to give you an idea, a soul contract would be where, or an example of a soul contract would be where we, that is you, the listener or student, and myself, the speaker or teacher, had agreed before we came here that at this point in time, I would present these chats, where I would have had training and experiences in my life that made me an authority on different topics, and you would currently be going through something or would have had experiences that you needed clarity on or support with. So I know that as I do these chats, I'm fulfilling my part of the contract, and those who are meant to receive benefit from this information will find this material in their possession. Us being here right now together, or if you're listening to this recording, is no coincidence. That's why I don't feel in competition or threatened by anyone else in my industry, because no one will come to me if we don't have a soul contract. And if the soul contract is with me, they're not going to go to anyone else's. I remember when, to anyone else, I remember when I was doing the healing touch, energy healing training, I was doing the practitioner level. So they'd come out originally to do the teaching in 2000. They were supposed to come back in October 2001, but then 9/11 happened. So they delayed that visit to come the next year. And so by that time, I had gone into my own practice from January 2002. And so all the people that were coming to me for sessions who wanted to learn about energy healing, I would recommend that they learn healing touch. And so when they were coming out in October, I recommended a whole lot of people to be on the course. So out of the 25 people that were on the course, 18 people were from my referral in the Durban area. And I remember the facilitator still saying to me, you're crazy. Why did you do that? Because now all the people won't be coming to you. And so I said, well, soul contracts are a very definite thing. So if their soul contract is not to come to me, then they're not going to have anybody else to go to with the healing touch. So I know that these people are not going to be in competition with me, because soul contracts are very, very specific about how they work and who you have the soul contract with. So I've never, ever had an issue with it. I've been in places where there are other healers, and they almost don't want to talk to you because they think that you're their opposition, and then I just walk up to them smiling and chatting to them, because I know there's no competition within this industry, because everybody will go to the people that they are meant to learn from or experience or be helped with their healing. There's a beautiful story. I'm going to mess it up completely because it's always done from memory. So I think it's called The Little Sun. It's a children's book by Neil Donald Walsh. And in the beginning, before it actually came out in print, the PDF was in circulation on the internet. They were probably trying to spread awareness. This is a long time ago. And so in this story, it's a children's story. It's a story of this light who goes to God and says, God, what am I? And God says, you're a light. So the little light says, so how do I know I'm a light? He said, well, that's just the truth of who you are. So what do I do? He says, you shine. But how do I know that I shine? He says, that's just the truth of who you are. So anyway, little light goes away. There's another light that's paying attention and noticing what's going on. Then the little light comes back to God and says, God, what's forgiveness? And God said, well, that's when someone does something bad to you and then you forgive them for what they did. So he says, well, how would I know? How can I experience forgiveness? He says, well, you got to go find someone who's prepared to do something bad to you for you to have that experience. So as I'm reading this up to this point, I'm just thinking, oh, this is a cute little story. It's just like a parable kind of thing. Very, very nice. But at that point, you need to ask someone to do it to you in order for you to have the experience. So you'll have to ask them, and then they will go down to earth with you so that you can have that experience. And that's when I was getting shockwaves through my body, because I knew in that moment that is how it happens. And so the other light came up, because the little light was saying, so where do I find someone like that? And the other light that had been paying attention to this came up and said, I tell you what, because I love you enough and I know how much you want this experience, I'm prepared to come with you down to earth, and then we can have this experience for you to experience what forgiveness is. But all I ask in return is that, I get emotional with this. All I ask in return is that you remind me that I'm a light also, because I may not remember that I'm a light too. So, because that makes you think of all the people that have done things to us, and it would always be a soul contract. It cannot not be a soul contract. And forgiveness doesn't mean that what they did is okay. Forgiveness just means I'm no longer prepared to carry the pain of what your actions are. And both would be learning from that experience. That would be the soul contract. It wouldn't just be a one-way contract. And so the soul on the receiving end of the forgiveness would learn how to be able to, that you can have done something bad and someone can forgive you for it, or everybody's learning in the situation. Even people observing what's going on is learning from the situation. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying here. I'm not saying that when people are doing bad things all the time that we have to put up with it. That is not what I'm saying. I'm saying that there are certain soul contracts that are meant to be played out. There are also things that you'll find in your lane or in your experience that you can choose. Part of your learning is to choose not to be part of that shit show, okay, that you choose to be separate from. Not every one of the learnings have to be where you stay in there. Part of it can be where you walk away because you make a different choice, okay? So don't misunderstand me where I'm saying, no, you got to stay in a bad place and just forgive. That is not what I'm talking about. So when you look at the fact of what soul contracts are, that's why I have a different take on karma. So karma is where they say there is a reciprocation for your actions. So whatever you do, there's going to be a negative reaction. Now, I have a different idea about it. And it's almost like you being punished for what you had done in past lives, etc. I have a different take on that, because I was trying to work it out. So if there are soul contracts, then how can you have how can you have created negative karma for yourself because you did something bad when the person asked you to do that? And you agreed to do that. The two of you agreed to the thing together. So that doesn't fit in. But then as I thought about it more, and of course I channeled over it to ask my guides to give me clearer understanding, what I got was we choose these lessons. So first of all, we are masters on the soul plane. We are not just a physical body, okay? We are masters on the soul plane. We are first and foremost an energy being having a physical experience. So when we decide to have the physical experience, part of the journey is how much spiritual understanding of what I know at my soul level can I bring through to this thing called life? How can I express myself from a higher perspective and be able to negotiate all the roadblocks that are put in front of me and overcome those things? Because that's how I gain mastery on the physical plane. Okay. Jesus was already a master on the non-physical. He was already a master on the soul plane. He came and gained his mastery on the physical plane, setting an example for everybody so that they could learn lessons and for the story to live long enough in order for us still to be referring to what he taught, the lessons that he taught. So from a soul's perspective, if you get it wrong, okay, so you don't overcome it, you get mad, you walk, whatever the thing is, you don't learn the lesson the way you intended to, you can choose to repeat a particular lesson in another lifetime, or there's also a possibility that it's not working with the soul that you're with, and we have soul contracts with more than one soul in some cases, okay? So if we didn't learn it with the one, then you may end up, let's say you don't learn the lessons you're supposed to learn with the first partner, and so with your second partner, similar things come up, okay? And then maybe then you're strong enough to be able to overcome what those lessons are. So I don't believe it's a punishment, because they make karma sound like it's a punishment. Because first of all, we all agreed to it. So why should there be a backlash to that? And secondly, I believe that we chose to overcome those challenges in order for us to gain mastery. Every single thing we do on this planet, in this life, no matter what it is, no matter how it appears, whether it's overly spiritual or the street sweeper, whatever the level you are as a human being, no matter what standard in life you are, financially, emotionally, what type of work you do, no matter what role you play, every one of us are here in order to gain mastery of the physical plane. And that means to find ways to experience this life through love and treating everybody with respect and love and honoring their journey on their path to their mastery. So my way is not the right way. Your way is not the right way. We each have our own journey that we're on for what we want to achieve. That's why it's easy to say to someone, you shouldn't be doing that. You should be doing this, because what you're doing there is wrong. You're doing that from your perspective. You're not understanding what their journey is and what they need to achieve in this lifetime. So there's no judgment about where anybody is at this stage or what their responses or reactions are, because that is part of their journey. Okay. So a few years ago, we've got I don't know if it's still on. I haven't watched TV for 2.5 years, but I don't know if the program is still on. There was a Sunday evening program called Carte Blanche, and it was kind of like a magazine show that was reporting on things that were going on around the country, and then they would interview people, etc. And so it wasn't a news channel. It was more like a reporting investigative channel. And so this was around about 2000, I think. And they had this program on, and it was, they were going back to go and revisit this woman as a follow-up story, because a few years before they had featured her. What had happened with her, she had been raped in Johannesburg, and I can't remember what the circumstances of what the original rape was, but there was no rape crisis center particularly in Johannesburg. So she was motivated to open up a rape crisis center. So they were now going back as a follow-up story to go and find out, how it's doing, what's happened since they last saw her. And while they were busy in the process of the shooting of it over a couple of days, someone broke into her house, raped her 18-year-old daughter in front of her, and her in front of her 18-year-old daughter. So knowing what the background story was, I was absolutely stunned. And I didn't realize I had expressed it verbally out loud, because my husband was watching the program with me. And I was like, how on earth? Why would that happen? Why the hell would that happen? I don't understand. And he said to me, what is wrong with you? Can't you just get the fact that sometimes bad things happen to good people? And I said, no, because it doesn't work like that. I need to understand this. I was really shocked to the very core of me. So anyway, the next day, I was not working on the Monday. I used to have the Monday off. But during the day, I'd gone to a coffee shop with some girlfriends who I thought were like-minded with me. And I'd also reached at that stage, because I've been studying metaphysics my whole life. And at that stage, I was pretty much I didn't judge people where they were at, what they were doing, what their behavior was or anything, because I just knew everybody's on their own journey. So I didn't have a judgment no matter what they were doing. And I never took it personally if they were mean to me, because I just thought, well, it's not necessarily me. There can be something that I trigger in them that makes them react in that way. I just was in a space of non-judgment. So now everybody's talking about this carte blanche story from the night before. And everybody's saying, oh my gosh, how could that happen? That's a terrible thing to happen to anybody. And and I was kind of saying, well, maybe part of that was the daughter wasn't on board, wondering why on earth was the mother so dedicated. I said, I just don't understand it. It's just too much. And then one of the women pop up, oh, please, man, how can somebody get raped? I just don't understand it. You can kick them in the groin, you can scream and shout and scratch them, and you can do so much damage. And I was so taken aback. I said to her, are you kidding me? You're absolutely petrified for your life. You think you're going to die. You don't think of all those things. So anyway, I was seriously pissed with her because she made me judge her. And I couldn't not judge her. I was so mad. I couldn't believe she could have that kind of reaction. I didn't understand how she could be so stupid. Anyway, so the next morning I go to work, because I was working for the lady as a Girl Friday 4 mornings a week, the lady that did the aurosoma, the color therapy. And so I went to her the next morning, because she also knew this woman, and I was still pissed. And I said, I cannot believe, the whole thing that happened with carte blanche. And so I went for coffee yesterday. We were talking about it. And, oh, my God, so-and-so pissed me off so much because I can't believe her attitude was that. So she turns around and she says to me, oh, so who's been raped before? So I said, what do you mean? She said, not in this lifetime. But how do you know that you fear for your life? How do you have that understanding? So I said, it's obvious. Obviously that's how you'd feel. And she said, no, it's not obvious. You have to have been in that situation to have that absolute conviction that happens. So I said, what do you mean? She said, well, when you have a lifetime experience, you are actually in that situation, so you know exactly how you would react. And then you have compassion for that. Anything you have compassion for, you have been there, done that, and bled on the T-shirt. And I said to her, man, I have a lot of compassion for a lot of things. So I think there's many things I've been there, done that, and bled on the T-shirt. She said, but you couldn't possibly know what it is to be in the situation and have that understanding unless you had been there. And so that woman has never been in that situation. So in her logical thinking, it does make sense. Think about it logically. It's logical that you should be able to do that. But the fact that you know differently is because you've actually been there. So I'd never thought of things in that way. And I thought, well, I have a lot of understanding of a lot of things. So I suppose that is how it is. And she also said she was talking about a client of hers that she did regression with. And in this regression, this woman was paranoid all of a sudden about her daughter. The daughter was about 2 years old. And she said she just didn't know why all of a sudden she's just so paranoid and worried for her daughter and all this kind of stuff. And so she had come to try and resolve this issue. And in the regression, because normally with regression, you go earlier in this life. So where did this situation happen in this life? And if you can't find anything, or even if you do find something in this life, to gain greater understanding, you go into further back to see in a past life what was the experience further back. Where did it stem from? In other words, what is the root of it? So anyway, in the woman's regression, she went back and she had been molested when she was 2, which she didn't remember that she had that experience. So anyway, and then when they went further back to find out, okay, so where did this come from? Go further back to find out what the story is. And she said for the first time with a client of hers, they weren't in a lifetime. She said, I'm not in a lifetime. I'm in between lifetimes. I'm sitting at a boardroom table and I'm asking different people to play different roles in my life. In other words, setting up the soul contracts, okay? So she said, will you be my mother and will you be caring and nurturing and loving so I can remember to be like that in this life? Will you be my father? Will you be strict and unloving and whatever so that I can remember not to be like that in this lifetime? Will you be my sister, my teacher? Every single person that was going to play a role in her life, all those things were set up, all those soul contracts. And then she said, well, for the work that I need to do later on, because she was actually a counselor for like rape, like abuse counselor. And she said, for the work that I need to do later on, I need to be molested when I'm 2, so that is in my energy field. Will you be able to do it? Will you? No, sorry, that's going to mess up this lifetime. Can't do it. And so it went on and on and on around the table. Everybody was like, no, that's going to mess up this lifetime. Can't do it. Somebody walking past said, what's the commotion about? And she said, I really need this experience for the work that I need to do. And I'll explain why. So he says, well, I've got nothing on at the moment. So, and this might shock some people, but just if it feels right, let it flow. If it doesn't, just let it go. I've got nothing on at the moment. And since you really need this experience, and I love you enough to give you this experience, I will do this for you. But because I've got nothing on, does anybody else need that experience? I can be a pedophile if everybody needs that experience because I've got nothing else going at the moment. And so when I heard that story, I absolutely knew that's how it happens. And I know for us now, seeing the mega scale that it's on worldwide, it's a bit shocking, but all of it could only be with soul contracts. That I have no doubt. That doesn't mean you don't have sympathy for people's experience. So don't get that wrong. It just means there is an agenda that we set up as souls for how we want our experiences to grow. And also to understand for all those souls that decided that this was the lifetime they were happy to take on this mega scale of stuff, it was because their contract was in relation to mankind, not just in a small way for their own little growth. It was on a mega scale. Okay. So anyway, And so that's how that thing was set up. Okay. So I said to Melissa, but then why would you, I don't get it. Why did she need that experience? And she said, well, if you've been raped and you go to a rape crisis counselor and they've never had the experience before, and they're busy telling you, you're going to be okay, everything's going to be fine, straight away your body gets, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. You're crazy, because it can feel energetically that they have never had the experience. Okay. So, but if they've had the experience, even if it's in another lifetime or this lifetime, that energy signature of been there, done that, bled on the t-shirt and survived and got on with my life is already in their energy field, which is transmitted to the other person's energy field. So the counselor doesn't have to say, yes, I've had this experience, this is what happened to me. All they've got to say, everything is going to be fine, you're going to be okay. And that person feels, I'm going to be okay, everything is going to be fine. So you need to have had the experience. So people are normally born counselors. You don't just get someone who was an accountant who's never, ever, ever done any counseling or anything, and suddenly out of the blue decides, no, I think I want to be a counselor. They would have been a counselor their whole life, and then but thought, got to do the right thing because my mother was an accountant, my father was an accountant, let me study accountancy, and then find, actually, no, I know my calling is to be a counselor. So a person doesn't just come through and be a counselor later on. They're born a counselor because they already have that compassion in their heart for how can I make a difference in the world. Okay. Okay, so I covered all of that. So one of the things that she also said is this goes much bigger than just in a formal way. So if I've got that, I've been there, done that, and survived rape, doesn't matter what lifetime, and I go to a grocery store, and there could be a girl there who had been raped the last few days, say, and hadn't told anybody, nobody knows about it, and she just feels she cannot go on. She's decided she is checking out of this life tonight. We happen to bump each other by the milk counter, okay? And I say, oh, I'm so sorry. No other communication or anything going on, or we just bump each other, smile, and then we go our separate ways. In that moment, there was an energy exchange, and that would be a soul contract where her energy reads that my energy, I've had that experience, been there, done that, bled on the t-shirt and survived, going to be okay. She then leaves the grocery store, and all of a sudden she's feeling like, I don't know why, I just feel okay, like she can continue. So that's how big our soul contracts are with people, and so many people. So nothing is random. When you're standing in a queue and you don't know the people in front of you or behind you, we normally like, oh my God, why do we have to stand in the queue? It's taking so long. I've got this to do and that to do. We don't even realize that all that is orchestrated in order for us to be affecting the people all around us. Once I had heard the story, I then became far more patient and aware wherever I went to. If somebody bumped into me, I would turn around and make eye contact with them. If someone, if we were standing in a queue and I look across to another queue and someone is looking at me, I would smile at them because I would recognize the fact that we are even looking at each other. There's an energy exchange going on that is obviously significant, even though we may never know. We may never have a conversation that would reveal what that information is. And so when we're in a space, the energy fields are communicating with each other, and there's transmission going on between us and those around us. And I was actually thinking about how huge that actually is, because that means if you're delayed at any point, and then you end up going to the store an hour later than you intended, that's not random. Then you end up in the store with completely different people that would have been there if you'd gone the hour earlier. And so now you are with all those people in the store. The fact that you're all in the same space, you're in the same soup, there is energy exchange going on as you're walking down the aisles and you bringing your energy there. So it made me very conscious of that kind of thing. So that also made me, when the whole COVID thing happened, was I would, because I know I want to be deliberate when I have to go out to the shops, or if I'm even driving around, is I want to, the violet flame, you can invoke the violet flame. So you would say, I now invoke the violet flame to blaze a trail before me. And then I would also have it coming through my body and expanding outwards from me. So I would radiate that frequency out, that anybody who I was anywhere near would be affected in a positive way. So if there's negative stuff going on in their lives, then the energy could be shifted and transmuted. And you could say, oh, but what about, how do you know you got permission for that? Well, I would visualize it like, you see sometimes in the cartoons where everything is white, but I would picture it where, as if the person who doesn't want the energy is walking in a bubble. So they are protected from that. So if they choose not to transform, because the opportunity would be there, the soul contract would probably be that I would provide them with the choice, but they can choose not to do it. So a soul contract is, I will do what I said I was going to do, but you have the choice to choose if you want to take it up or not. That's your choice. So, and sometimes we get a bit hung up with the fact of, no, you really need to understand this. Meantime, all you had to do was tell them. If they didn't want to run with that, that is not your job. Your job was just to let them know at that point in time. So anybody who would choose transformation at that time can then be affected by the violet flame. So anybody I would come in contact with, drive past, they would all be affected, because I kind of expanded out to like a 50-kilometer radius kind of thing. And that anybody who wants to take from it, transmute any low frequencies, they can do it. You know, if that's what their prayer is, to be able to do that, then I'm providing that space that they can do that. And I've also deliberately done it for those who regret having taken the jab and wish they hadn't, that the transmuting can happen. Transmutation means taking lead and making it into gold. So it's a complete change of structure, so that you can't recognize the original thing. Transformation is taking, for example, a table and then making a chair out of the table. You can still see the stuff that was used. The material still looks like the table. Whereas with alchemy, which is what transmutation is, there's no gold in lead and there's no lead in gold. So you cannot see where the one came from the other. So it's a transmuting flame that you can use very powerfully for shifting stuff in your home, in your environment, wherever you go. If there's some place you have to go and you're fearful of any lower frequencies, invoke the violet flame to blaze the trail before you're making all the crooked places straight, but also walk around in the violet flame. It's not a hot flame, it's a cool flame. And then you will find that you won't be fearful, and you will also be invisible to anything that would have meant harm, that does mean harm. You would be invisible to that. So some soul contracts are more important than others, okay? So as I was saying, all those that are going through the experiences of all the stuff that we found out over the last 2.5 years, everybody would have engaged in a soul contract to do it. And some people may say, well, you've got to be stupid. Why would you do something like that? Well, yeah, we are rather stupid, because when we're in the soul level, there's no time. There is no limitation. And we're thinking, now I'll be around for 90 years. And you know what? Just throw the whole damn thing in. I don't want to do lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. We've got to this stage on the planet. I just want to learn the whole bang shoot. So let's just do it all. And then you wonder why those people have gone through so much. And you think, how can one human being actually survive all of that? But it's because they chose it. So they have their soul support in all that they are going through. They are not doing it alone. Okay. They are not doing it alone. And, but the soul contract for everybody observing what's going on there, that person's soul contract with everyone is much, much bigger than just the one-to-one soul contract. So it's the same as, I remember there was a girl in South Africa around about, I could be wrong with the date, but maybe 1998 or somewhere around there. She had liver failure, so she needed a liver transplant. And it had been on TV, maybe also through carte blanche, but also they'd looked around the world to try and find a liver replacement. So everybody kind of knew the story worldwide about this little girl that needed a liver transplant. Now, with those kind of things, the scale of the soul contract is much bigger. The same with that baby that was supposed to have been taken away by the dingoes in Australia. Everybody knew about what that story was. It doesn't matter what the story is. The impact is what the soul contract is, how it impacts all the people. Okay. Another one was McCann, that little girl that disappeared. I think they were in France. Her parents were holidaying in France, but she was a British girl. That also impacted everybody. Everybody was watching with bated breath. Are they going to find her? Are they going to find her? Are they going to find her? So those are still soul contracts. The fact that it even gets your attention, there's something you are meant to take from that. Either you are meant to learn something from it, observe what's happening to it. But normally, if there's an emotional component to it, there is a direct connection between you and that. There is a soul contract. It's not just an observation at a distance. It's something that impacts you, that maybe you are meant to make sure you take more care about when you're going camping with your child or whatever the case may be. Each person will take something different from it. Some may react and say the parents were irresponsible and blah, 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 blah. Others may say, feel so sorry for the parents. What a terrible thing to go through. So you'll have a whole lot of different kinds of reactions to people that would be that would impact lives in different ways. But the scale would be much, much bigger than just what the one-to-one contract is. So there can be people who have a soul contract within their community. So only their community know about the tragedy or the heroic thing that's done. So the soul contract would just be with the community. And then you got some where it would be statewide or countrywide, or the whole world would know about it. So the soul contracts are, you get different levels of soul contracts, and they're equally as important, but you just get some souls that just think, no, let me be the example for the world. Take my hat off to those, because obviously it's a much bigger journey and one that's got a far grander impact. So how do you know if you have a soul contract with someone? If there is an emotional charge, there's some chemistry associated with that. I spoke about, I don't know which chat was that, where I spoke about, it was the sacred contracts of Carolyn Mace, the book that she wrote called Sacred Contracts. And she said, pay attention when, I think it was with the relationships one, pay attention when there's animation between you and another human being. When there's animation, whether it's negative or positive, there's something that needs to be resolved. So it's either something that needs to be sorted out, that could be from past life stuff, still lessons that need to be finished, okay, which they call karmic, but I still think, I would say the karmic means that it has come from other lifetimes, but I would still say they are soul contracts that are in place in order for you to be able to overcome those things for your own mastery. So she says pay attention to any form of animation, which is kind of like a chemistry between you and the other person. And it doesn't always mean that it's that it needs to be a relationship, but there's definitely something significant about the fact that there is any buzz between you and another person, or where a person just gets your attention. I've noticed with some of the people on Telegram right in the very beginning, where I would hear them talking, and straight away I would just think, I really like their voice. There's something about this person. And then I would just send a DM and say, hi, just reaching out. Just thought I'd open up a conversation in case we ever need to connect later on. And that's what I'd done with Tom. Because just what he would speak about and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, no, I really, there's something about this guy and I need to connect with him. And so that's happened all along the way, like with Philip. So there have been people in Telegram that I really had strong connections with. And then you reach out initially, and then all of a sudden, as time went by, it then showed how big those connections were. As we reconnected on other channels, and then we ended up in the same channels, it just the soul contracts became more clear of what our connectivity was all about. So I know with some of the people on Telegram, I have deep, deep, deep soul connections that I don't even have with some people that I know in physical life, because this is on social media. But there are some people that I have such strong connections with on social media, even though we haven't physically met, energetically we are connected. So it's going to be interesting when we all end up in the same place, discussing all these amazing things. Okay, so in my channeling course, one of the things that I get people to ask questions is to ask what the soul contract is with different people in their lives. So there'll be some significant relationship that was maybe when they were a teenager, and then there might have been a significant relationship with a boss or a co-worker. Maybe the boss was mean, or the boss took them under their wing. So you can ask those kind of questions to find out what was the soul contract. And the answers are always so amazing, because sometimes some of the worst relationships, the answers that came back, and of course these are the answers people definitely didn't want, which was you were to learn unconditional love or no judgment. But very often it was where the connection had been where, let's say in this lifetime, they were the parent and they were the child, and then they got the parent and they got a mother from hell. But in a previous lifetime, they were the mother and the parent was the child. And so so what is the soul contract? What was the purpose of it? And very often as well, it's the experience of, well, in that lifetime, I treated them badly, or I was abusive to them. So now I'm on the receiving end of that, to learn what it's like to be on the receiving end. Because very often people don't know, they don't realize how bad something is. Like, you can say something to someone and not realize how bad that is, because you're just mad and you just throw something out there, until you repeat that to yourself as if somebody's saying it to you, and you think, oh my God, I cannot believe I said that. I'm so sorry. And you wonder why the person burst into tears. You didn't mean it in that way, but then of course there are other things that are on a bigger scale than that. So it's like you got to learn the lesson of how to be able to control your anger, perhaps, or to learn what it's like. There's so many different ways that one can experience things in order for you to understand things from a different perspective. Hence the been there, done that, bled on the T-shirt, because you had to have been there and understood it. Because if you were the abuser, you have no concept of being abused. And so in order for you to understand that, you need to be the abused to understand what it's like on the receiving end, and vice versa. Because it helps you understand why a person, if you're the abuser in this lifetime and you were the abused in a previous lifetime, in this lifetime you are learning why a person does the abusing. So was it trauma from their childhood? Were they beaten? It's very sad, unfortunately, that a lot of the time people who were abused become abusers. It's almost like, well, monkey see, monkey do. This is what I went through. This is the only way I know. So I behave in the exact same way. And it's like, man, you missed the point. It wasn't meant to be like that. You were meant to do it differently, you know? And so, and then you see the soul contracts with the kids who were treated the worst. Okay. There's always the one child that's a favorite, and then the other child or the other children are treated badly. But the child that was the favorite in the old age of the parents, that child wants nothing to do with the parents. Doesn't want to do anything, doesn't contribute, doesn't help, does absolutely nothing. And the parents ends up staying with the parent, or parents end up staying with the other children. And all the other children keep on hearing is, oh, but you know, so-and-so is so wonderful. I love her or him so much. You know, they can't do a thing wrong. And they still criticize the children that they're with, not appreciating what they've done. Of course, there are all soul contracts in place for all of that. What the children are meant to learn is, well, go and stay with her because I wash my hands off this. I'm done. You can go and stay with them. I'm no longer prepared to tolerate your abuse. I'm done, because that would be the reason why you set it up, in order for you to overcome that, to become empowered by that situation. So how would you be able to recognize a soul contract? So the way, if you look at how it plays out, like, for example, if it's a situation where there's a lot of control or emotional abuse or whatever from the one partner to the other, then the partner who's the powerless partner, the victim, if they wanted to know, so what is my soul contract? Because it's funny, the one that's doing the controlling and that, they will never need to ask what is the soul contract, because they're not even aware of what they do. The way you can ask it is, okay, so if I was my soul and I set this situation up, what the hell would I have wanted to take out of this? If I know that it's all about gaining mastery, in what way would I gain mastery in a situation like this? And it would always be where you would stand up for yourself, where you would take control of your life, walk away if you need to, do whatever it takes in order to survive and get away and gain your personal power, become self-empowered. And that doesn't matter how that plays out, because when you start asking the questions, the information will start coming, because your soul will start giving you information. And that may come through somebody talking, like me talking now. It could be a movie that you watch. It could be a story that you hear, and you just get the aha moment of, oh my gosh, now I know what I'm supposed to do. And you will be given the courage, you will be given the tools to do it once you make up your mind. I remember when I went on the Hay House Authors Cruise, and Jan Levansant was talking. And when people were, because the authors were giving presentations, and when people were would want to ask her a question, they'd walk up to the front and go and ask the question by the mic. But there was a woman sitting about 2 rows in front of me, and she didn't want to go up. And she said, no, I'd rather ask from here. So somebody brought her a mic, and she said, what happens when you know that you are meant to get out of the situation, and you know that you are that you've got to leave, but so many people will be impacted, like the children and all that kind of stuff? What do? And Yanda said, you make the decision that it's time for you to go. You make the decision that you want out, and then watch how the universe supports you. She said, because something will happen where maybe he meets somebody else and he wants out of the relationship. But once you make the decision, the forces of the universe will come and support you. So for anybody who may end up listening to this, who are in a situation like that, or in an abusive situation, make the decision that you're not prepared to put up with it. Because once you do that, energetically something shifts in your body, in your DNA, where you are literally, by the decision, taking your power back. Things will start unfolding. You don't have to do it in a way that's going to cause you more problems, but you may have to run away in the middle of the night. If that's what it seems like the only way you can do it, then you do it. But you will know, it will show clearly which is the right path for you to take. And then I also see that in some cases, people will stick by someone no matter what happens, as like friends, like no matter what, the friend treats you badly, but then they'll phone and say, I don't know, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? And then they go running back to help them, drop everything to help the person. And people will say, why do you do that? I mean, that's so stupid. No, I just feel that I have to. I just feel that I have to. That is a soul contract. That is a soul contract that obviously at some point, the soul contract was that I will stand by you, that the soul connection is so strong that the one person has said, I will stand by you no matter what, as you journey through your life experience in order for you to sort through your stuff in this lifetime and gain your mastery. Or maybe it's not just in one lifetime, it could be this lifetime and the next lifetime. But when someone, regardless of what happens, always stands by somebody, even though that person may not treat them well, that is a very, very strong soul contract where they are not able to walk away because they were that committed at a soul level to be able to help that person. So the soul contracts really can show in different ways. It's quite amazing how you can see them. Because I know of soul contracts, I can see it in every facet. It's the most amazing thing. Why people stay in jobs that they should leave, and why they stay in relationships that they should leave. And there's a very good thing I remember with the channeling. When I learned how to channel, I was like, oh my gosh, now my own psychic, I can get all the information. And then when I was asking questions, it was like, no, because the channeling connection is connected with the 12th dimension. So it's not 3D stuff. Okay. So when you're getting the information, it's different. And so when I was asking my guides the questions, they said, oh, no, you it depends on your choices. So I said, what do you mean? And they said, well, you set up in this lifetime that you're going to go from, let's say, I'm going to use South Africa as the example. So if I decide I'm going to go from Cape Town to Johannesburg. Okay. So the choices are I can belly crawl. I can crawl on my hands and knees. I can walk. I can run. I can ride a bicycle. I can ride a motorbike. I can ride a car. And I can go the garden route all along the sea and then go across. I can zigzag my way there, or I can just think, stuff it, I'm going to catch an airplane. Those are where we have the choices of how long it takes us to get there. But the going from point A to point B, that you've set up before you can. So I said, but what about things like relationships? And, if I want to get information, and I go to a psychic, they'll tell me you're going to meet a tall, dark, handsome man, and you're going to do this and do that. There's going to be this astrological sign and everything. How come you can't give me that? And they said, when a person's doing a psychic reading, they are reading your energy field. They're reading your mental body. They're reading the where you are heading. So if you're in a bad relationship and it's an absolute disaster, where that's headed, the road that relationship is headed towards is divorce. So they will tell you, oh, I can see you're going to get divorced. But at any point you can decide differently. You either decide to make it work or you can decide to leave. So what they are telling you, you can change at any point in time. That's not set in stone. But they are reading where you're headed with where you're at right now. And so I said, so if I was asking you, should I leave my partner? If someone was asking, should I leave my partner? What would your response be? Well, if you're asking, should you leave your partner? clearly the soul contract is not yet over because you're still with them. And if they were asking, did I do the right thing by leaving my partner? The fact that they'd already left their partner means the soul contract was over. So that was pretty amazing stuff. Needless to say, I was very disappointed that I couldn't give myself my own psychic readings. So I just want to tell you this visualization that that got shared in a class that I went to once, and it's really in a course that I was on. It was an Aura Soma course, but she gave a visualization of how you can do something with to do with soul contracts. So she was saying she used it with parents, but you can do it with anybody. Okay, so you imagine yourself like you're the director of a play. So you sitting in the director's chair, and you are looking at the stage, and on the stage you put your mother and your father. Okay, and you see your mother and your father, and you ask for the light that they are holding for you, that you can see that light. And all of a sudden you'll be able to see this huge light that is the light they carry for you. And then you call back that light. You say you now call back that light to you so that it's added back to you. And then you look back at your parents to see their own light. Oh my goodness. It was quite mind-blowing, because especially if the individual didn't play a very good role in your life, and then when you look at what their light is, it's like, oh my goodness, that's why I'd ask them to do whatever they did for me. So you can do this with any kind of soul contract people, to just see, because if there was a soul contract between you, there was a connection, and then you can see what light were they holding for me in order for them to play the role that they needed to play, which may not have been a very good role. So you can do that visualization. So you picture the people on the stage, or picture the person on the stage, ask for the light that they are holding that is yours to be revealed, then ask for that light to come back to you, feel it coming back to you, and then look back at them on the stage to see, ask for their light to be shown. And then you can thank them for having done such a superb job of the soul contract. So now we're going to open for any questions.